What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 441 of Opinions May Vary. I'm your host, Jayare. I have my co-host with me, as always, Mr. Alex.
Hello.
Alex, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited.
That is right. It's an exciting one. I'm not going to vamp for too long. I'm not good at it. It's going to be worth it. We are very excited this week, joined by arguably our most decorated guest. And also, I'm a little biased. One of my favorite professionals in the industry. We're joined by Eisner-winning, Harvey-winning, New York Times bestseller artist and writer, Mr. Rob Guillory. Rob, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. We've been talking about this, I feel like, since before COVID, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been one of those missed connections, you know?
Mhm.
It just happens. It is what it is. I think a lot of people who do what we do, like you got to take stuff with a grain of salt. Sometimes you'll start to make a connection, and then it just falls through. It is what it is.
Mhm.
I don't like being pushy, so it's like we'll let it simmer for a little bit. We'll give it a rest. We'll check back in later. So here we are.
Cool, man. Well, I'm glad we finally get to do this.
I'm pretty excited. I spent the first, 4 years of this show talking about Chew on a monthly basis, pretty much. It was a running gag for a long time because it was my favorite book. It was like because I first got into comics and buying comics on a weekly basis in 2009.
Mm.
So like, I think the first issue of Chew dropped like 3 months into me like buying comics.
Wow.
And a friend of mine recommended it, and they're like, "Hey, check this out." And I got a third printing of the first issue, and I was like, "Oh, cool! This is the best thing ever." And it went from there. So I've been a big fan ever since, and it's been I don't know if you knew this, Rob, if you've been keeping up with the show, but in like 2014, you were voted the best artist of the year on our show.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. I need my certificate now.
Yeah, the checks in the mail. But yeah, it's been a long time coming. Very excited. So thanks again for making the time to do this. We're gonna kick it off with like obviously there's the Chew stuff, but I think the more important thing right now would be to talk your latest work, your current work, which is Farmhand, which is currently 15 issues in. It's been on hiatus for a little bit, just while you get everything together. And issue 16, I believe, according to Instagram, is coming in the spring. Is that right?
Yeah. I actually just sent off the solicitation information to Image last week, so it'll be coming out in early April of 2022, finally.
That's pretty exciting. Is this going to be similar to what you've been doing in terms of like, is it 5 issues at a time? Yeah, five.
Yeah. Yeah. The 5 issue arcs, and we're in the home stretch at this point. The series is going to end at either issue 25, possibly 26. So yeah, next year is all about wrapping that thing up. Yeah, COVID really did a number on everything on my side of the fence. So basically, all of this year has been catching back up and getting everything back together again. So we're finally back on track. I'm working on issue 19 now, and I'm really excited about what's about to come out.
It's one like the last issue when we left off at 15, I believe, like looking at the inside cover that was in April of 2020-ish.
Hmm.
So that was literally right when everything was exploding.
Yeah, yeah. I finished. I remember I finished issue 15, which the third arc was just brutal. Subject matter wise, but also it was just a rough time for me. So as soon as literally, I sent off the file to Image, and I decided. And actually, if you read the letters column of issue 15, I said I was going to be taking a short hiatus to just get my head back together and come back and finish the book. And right when I sent that off, that was March 13th, right when the schools closed and right when everything got shut down. So everything just fell apart right after that. So yeah, I'm it's been an interesting year and a half or so.
has the hiatus been because like you see we've been seeing it a little more in comics. I don't know if Saga was like the first one to do it in terms of we're putting out issues and then we're taking a break and then we're
Right.
putting it like to break away from the grind of month in and month out, putting out issues. Is that something that you see yourself doing for like the rest of your career? Do you see that as very beneficial for artists and writers?
Absolutely. I mean, I first started taking the little skip months, we used to call them, back during shoe because the monthly grind, like you said, is just brutal. Especially if you're handling more than one job. In this case, with Chew, I was doing all the art and a good most of the coloring. With Farmhand, I'm handling the writing, the art. I'm handling all the management of the book and everything. So it's just a lot to kind of hold on to. But with Chew, that first year of Chew in 2009, right when you started reading comics, I mean, I did 10 issues in that first year, 10 monthly issues, and it was just brutal. And I just swore I'd never do that again. So ever since then, I basically do 5 issues on, take 2 to 3 months off, and then come back with another five. And with Farmhand, it's been pretty similar. With Farmhand, I kind of call my shot ahead of time. So in the back of every issue of Farmhand, there's a calendar that actually says, these are the dates when these issues are coming out. So it makes things easier for everyone involved. But yeah, moving forward, I'll always take that break. I think people were afraid back whenever Chew was first coming out to take those kinds of breaks. I remember when we kind of pitched the idea to Image way back in the day, they were really concerned about, us losing momentum and like people losing interest in the book and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, as long as we were upfront about it, we were transparent, people were totally content to kind of support us even through that. So it never affected us in any negative kind of way. But yeah, now with Saga and a lot of other books, they're starting to do more and more of that. So it's just better for everyone's mental health, really. I mean, comics is just so intense. I mean, especially making it in a crazy social media climate, where you're just bombarded with media nonstop. You need that time to step away and get your head together.
Right. And like it's so easy to just like, oh hey, I'm sitting down with a comic book. This takes me 20 minutes tops to read.
Right.
But it took how many hours to make,
Right.
There's so much that goes into it. I know a lot of artists do it differently, but I think again, according to the Instagram, you work on typically like a page a day kind of
Yeah,
schedule, which
I've been
sounds grueling.
Yeah. It's not that bad. But I mean, I've been doing it for years with Chew and everything. I mean, again, what changes everything is just the juggling everything else. With Chew, my partner on that, John Lehman, handled most of the media. He handled a lot of the business side of things. With Farmhand, I'm doing all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that just, makes I couldn't do more than a page a day. And I have tried, and it never works out. So yeah, I am maxed out. Plus, on top of that, maintaining a family. I have 3 young kids, so like, it's a lot to keep track of. But so far, so good.
Right.
It's a weird, I guess, respect, I'll call it, to keep the storyline numbering, because early 2000s and 90s comics, you wouldn't get that consistent numbering. You would get the 6-issue miniseries, and there's a break, and now like in 3 months it'll be Farmhand Revelations, and we start back at number 1, and then we do this 4 times. Versus,
Well, I actually did talk to Image about numbering the new issue because I mean it's been a year and a half at this point since the last issue. So there's a part of me that, in complete honesty, I didn't want to renumber. It just felt kind of cheap to me. Not to knock anyone that does that kind of thing, but I didn't want to have to do it. And no, I mean we just agreed at the end of the day that let's just keep going with this thing. Let's see it through to its end. There's no need to renumber it just to kind of get some kind of cheap pop off of sales. let's just keep going to the end, and it'll be fine.
Chromium cover. That's I hear those are all the rage these days.
That's my one regret from Shoe is we never got to do a chromium cover. That was the one thing I wanted.
Chromium cover with bulging muscles.
Well, I did learn. I mean, back on the subject of chromium covers, I was thinking about this today, actually. What I learned about chromium covers, because we were feeling it out for Chew. Anyone who followed Chew, we did tons of goofy covers. We were playing around with the idea of a scratch and sniff for a second. Except we knew that, we would have to store these things at some point, and that just sounded brutal. But yeah, we were looking at chromium, and we learned from Kurtman, because he was doing some chromium covers. Apparently, there's only one guy who does chromium covers, which I'm like enthralled by. I think that's super interesting.
Corner of the market.
yeah. He's only one guy knows how to do them. I don't know who he is, but I mean, I kind of want to make a story about this guy now.
One thing and talk. I guess this is the perfect segue, and I've been dying to. This is how boring I am, but it interests me. And Alex and I both, when we were talking about doing this episode and talking about Farmhand, it's something that we both agreed on and we both planned to bring up. And I actually tweeted it to you once, like way back in the day. The quality of this book, not only like there's the story and the art, everything fantastic, love it. The actual physical quality is so like it's arguably like the most pristine book. Like even Alex brought it up. He's like the paper stock is it's great. Like, and also just the effort that you put into it. Like on the back of every issue, you can see the covers lined up, and like there's check boxes, and it'll tell you which one you're on, which one that have happened before this one. There's dates, when they're gonna come out. There's stuff in the back, like the y'all come back next to, like there's just so much stuff that you don't have to do that you still do, and I feel like it elevates the book to such a greater level. I'm assuming all of this was intentional.
Oh yeah,
when designing the book.
Absolutely.
Has that always been like when putting this all together? I imagine it just kind of made the workload that much more. But what was the thought process? What was, how did this come to be? How did that's the question. How did this happen?
Well, the books that I always that made the biggest impact on me, they just felt like a physical experience. I remember a book called Fell back in the early 2000s, Warren Ellis and Ben Temple-Smith.
Yep.
And it was done in a format that you never really see anymore. Is the Image Slimline format, which is I think it's only 22 pages. Let me see. It's 18 pages of story and 4 pages of cover, and it's just really tight. I mean, it's just a super tight format. There's no ads. There's no anything, and it just made it for it just felt special because there was nothing else. There's no other distraction. Everything had to do with the core book. And it was like watching a TV show on streaming versus watching it on network television. It's like, if I'm watching it on streaming, there's no ads. This is a complete thing. Mm-hmm. There's no distractions to this thing. And Brian K. Vaughan also is another guy who does it really, really well with his books. If you pick up Paper Girls, which was a personal favorite of mine, I mean, it is that, from cover to cover, everything is within this world. And it's also, he promotes his other work, that sort of thing. But it's really nice. And same thing with the paper stock. So right when I was starting Farmhand, I knew this is what I want. I want this thing to be, I don't want it to just be on your standard image paper that we printed Chew on. Even though that was good for Chew, I knew I wanted more than that for Farmhand. Even though it cost more and that sort of thing. So right when we were starting, I just hit up Image and said, hey, what do you have? What other options do you have in terms of printing? Can you give me some quotes? and we'll kind of decide on some stuff. Send me some samples or whatever. And yeah, they sent me tons of samples, and a lot of what I liked was very similar to what BKV was doing in Paper Girls. I mean, that kind of matte cardstock kind of paper, it just feels good. So yeah, no, all of that is very, very, very deliberate. Even the back matter, I hired a designer, a good buddy of mine, Bert Durand, who just, we from the very beginning we sat down and kind of worked out, what is one cohesive feel to this thing that we can maintain in all the floppy issues, but also using the trades. So if you look at the trades, it's the same motif all throughout. It's very similar to the, to the floppies, but it just creates this really nice cohesive kind of, reading experience, which sounds kind of fancy. But yeah, I mean, I've heard what you're saying from various other people, so it's kind of like, okay, cool, this is actually working. People seem to really be getting it. That's what I'm kind of going for. But yeah, it is a lot of work. But again, it all feels really good in the end. I'm happy with it.
It's nice following the book's brand and not following the publisher's brand. It's like I'm looking at this and even with True going through that and like, cause I get the trades, Jayare got everything. And then but with other titles, I'm seeing, well, this is a Marvel book first. And then it's, then I see what the content is. Whereas with Farmhand, it's like, this is the Farmhand books. These are the comics and these are the trades. And I'm seeing that before I'm seeing the parent company.
Right. Rick Remender does that really well too. I mean, with his, was it Giant Generator? Is that the name of it? His company? His imprint? I'm blanking.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, he does that really, really well as well. Everything is it's all Rick Remender in all of his other books. It is consistent. No offense to any other creators, but like, if I'm going to make a thing, if I'm going to promote anyone, maybe I'll promote a couple people here and there. But, for the most part, I'm trying to like build this brand. And this is the best way I know how to do it.
It does. It is Giant Generator. That is
okay. I thought so.
This thing I had to know.
It's the way Hickman does the vertical lines on the sides of his books too.
Yep. Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it's I don't want to say it's like a cult thing, but I feel like I've listened to enough cult podcasts to kind of like hear this sort of like branding sort of thing. Like I've seen cult leaders do this as well, to negative effect. We're just using it in a positive way.
Yeah.
It just it ties it all together. It immerses you into that world. It's just when you read an issue of Farmhand, you're in the world of Farmhand. Like there's some merch in the back. There's some, but it's all Farmhand related. There's some shoe ads in the back. Like you might see I can't remember. Are there ads for Skeleton in Farmhand? Or no, you do. I couldn't, because there's also the T-shirt.
Yep.
Company that you use. But by the way, Israel Skeleton, what a gentleman.
Oh, he's fantastic. Yeah,
we've talked with him
3 times,
4 times, 3 times,
at least 3.
He's what a guy. But yeah, so it's just a beautiful book. And I guess I've just wanted to say that for a long time. And I'm glad, like, it's just a conscious effort, even if it takes away from the potential bottom line, like I feel for what it's worth, it's appreciated.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, it makes me happy too. I mean, whenever I first got the first issues, the first printings of Farmhand in, I was just super happy with it. I agonized about this stuff a lot. The first time I ever saw it in print was we did some Ashcan versions of it for C2E2 in 2018, which is only half the issue. But it was the first time I'd ever actually seen the thing in print, and I was just stressed about it. Just like I was just flipping through it, like, just overthinking it like crazy. I did that with Chew also in the first issue. So yeah, no, I really care about this stuff. So I'm glad it's working out.
One thing I want to point out is it stressful predicting the release dates? Whereas I know companies, do that. They put the ads in, previews and everything, but like you have them on the books, and we've all heard of titles that get delayed for a month, 2 months, 3 years down the line that still hasn't come out. I mean, and this is pre-COVID, like barring COVID, like that's, yes, that's a pass. I get it. That's a lot's going on, but just like predicting, like, no, I have everything in line well enough where I can say in 5 months you'll get issue 5. It'll be right there.
Right, right. It's super stressful. I always try to leave myself a crazy amount of lead time. So like for instance, right now, like I said, I'm working on drawing issue 19 right now. And issue 20 has been written forever. So like, the first issue 16 is not gonna hit the stands till April. So by the time it hits the stands, I'll be done drawing the thing, and I mean it'll be done. That's a best case scenario. That's not always how that works. But yeah, the third arc was really difficult, just because there were some creative team shakeups that weren't expected, and you can't plan for everything. You can kind of do your part, but at the end of the day, life will kind of do what it does. Sometimes people get sick. There's job changes, things happen. There's COVID. There's things like COVID that pop up. You just kind of do what you can. So I've had to learn to, just try to be as transparent with the audience as possible. Which is why, if you follow me on social media, I'm pretty blatant, just transparent about, look, this is where I'm at with the next issue. So even during this time, while we've been kind of on hiatus, I've been trying to, I have a newsletter on my website, robguillory.com. So I'll send out updates to just say, hey, I'm still alive. I'm still working. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm thinking. And, I've been doing this long enough to where I have a very committed fan base. And it's interesting that, when I start sending out newsletters or getting emails from people, you just start recognizing all the names. And it's like, I know these people. Like, these are my people. So, I just try to be as completely honest about everything. If I'm late, I'll be honest about it. And everyone's always kind of respectful of that, and they kind of give me a lot of grace, which is kind of needed in this market. I mean, we're doing our best, but you can't plan for everything.
And it can be very unforgiving. I mean, I think choosing to take a hiatus, I am of the opinion that someone's mental health and someone's just health in general, excuse my language, just getting your shit together is important. And if it means that a comic book that I like gets delayed a little bit, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Like, there are plenty of other comics to hold me over, and I can also reread. I forget stuff. I need to go back. Like, oh, we're getting a new issue of Saga soon. Cool. I still have 3 enormous hardcovers that I can read through in the meantime to refresh myself.
Right.
Where was I going with this? Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say it's. Yeah, I mean, I think fans just appreciate the honesty. It's the worst thing is when, even growing up with comics, I mean, the thing that drove me crazy is when, I got really, really into a book, and there's a couple books that I won't name, that anyone who knows me has heard me complain about. But there's a couple books that I was really, really into in the 90s. And these books just fell off the face of the earth, and they just never finished them. And it just drove me crazy. Not that they, it's bad enough that when someone doesn't finish what they started, but then when you don't know why, that can really drive you insane, because it's like, I put all this money into this, supporting this book. I want to complete my collection. I want to know how this epic ends. But, when the creator just kind of vanishes on you, that's just, it just ruins any trust between the creator and the fan. So yeah, I do my best to try to avoid that.
It's also can be what I guess I remembered what I was trying to get at a second ago, but I lost myself in trying to put myself on a pedestal and say comic artists need support. It can be thankless. It can just be just scrolling comments. Where's the hardcover? Where's the next issue? Mm-hmm. Oh, hey guys, it's been a really tough year. Next issue, it's written, hopefully coming soon. First comment, when? Where is it? It can just be so brutal. So to just see that you're consistently just out there I see you replying to people in the comments. That's where I got a lot of my information in like the prep of this episode. Oh, hey, this, issue 17, blah, 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 as of 11/20, 16, 17, 18 are all done. Like, I got info from you talking to fans.
Cool. Cool. Yeah,
It's just nice to see.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. I mean, for me, I was into social media very early. Like I was on MySpace. I was on everything. Um, and I've dialed back a good bit in the last like 5 years or so. Like I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook, artist page or whatever. But that's kind of it. But so I'm not one of the guys that like post like every day, just because I just can't handle it. But I do try to engage. I kind of pay attention to who's talking to me and who's asking me questions, and I try to like get back to them as quickly as I can. So yeah. So far it's working out. I mean, maybe there's like a large segment of the fan base who's like super angry at me, but I haven't run into them yet. So we'll see.
So a thing that Jayare pointed out a while ago, it was around when we were first trying to get in contact, and how it was part of your planning and having the issues come out on certain dates. And one of the ones that was stressing Jayare out was how in the series in Farmhand, there was an election, and comics come out on Wednesdays, and I believe it was our presidential election is on a Tuesday. And so that issue in one of the captions said the day after election day. And Jayare's like, did he plan this? Was this on purpose? It was exactly the day after election day.
Yeah, no, I didn't plan that one. It's one of those weird things that just kind of happens. But yeah, I actually, someone asked me that same question. And I was like, that's kind of fun. But no, I guess I could have lied and like made myself look way more brilliant than I actually am. But
we were convinced.
Well, seeing as like there was so much effort put into like everything else, I was like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
I'm not that good, I don't think.
I did want to talk about the art, being that's how I was introduced to your work was through the art of Chew. Chew was it was a funny book. It also could wreck you emotionally just out of nowhere. Anyone who's read issue 30 knows where I'm coming from. That book legitimately ruined. And when I say ruined my day, it's one of those. I thought about it all day. I was like, oh my God, this book has jacked me up. But it was a fun book. It could be very funny. It could be very dark. It could be very deep. So going into Farmhand, I was like, what's going on with this? Like, is it going to have the trademark Rob Guillory stuff in the background? Are we going to have jacked pictures of Robert Kirkman hanging on the walls?
Right.
And there is that kind of stuff, but it's also this book can be unsettling at times, and some of the images are so. And Alex, I might ask you for what you told me in pre-show before we all met up, because I feel like you put it very well.
But one about,
and you know what I'm getting at,
the Thorn one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, the how it impacted your day.
So there was a point where Thorn's form is revealed, and we're getting to it.
Spoilers, by the way.
And I don't remember like what headspace I was in at the time. I don't remember if I was like kind of tired or sick or something, but as I'm gradually turning pages, like I'm getting uncomfortable, and somehow like it affected my existence. Like when I got to that point, I'm like, am I tripping? I felt like I was tripping somehow. I don't actually do any substances at all. But like that day, that was messing me up. And I'm like, am I lost? Is this the same book? I don't know what's happening anymore.
You disassociated like mad.
Yeah, I take that as a compliment. Yeah, I mean, coming off a Chew, I think I had a chip on my shoulder a little bit. I think with Chew, as successful as the book was, which was really surprising to all of us, I still, like you said, I was the funny guy. And yeah, we did kind of cartoonish violence, and every now and again we'd have like a heart-wrenching moment. But I think I wanted to prove that I could like do some other things. Um, and I was always a big horror fan. Um, Not that I liked watching horror movies, but that I really enjoyed. I thought horror was a very useful tool to kind of show things and kind of teach things. And I never really got to explore horror all that much in Chew because it was mostly just kind of gross out comedy kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted more, and we never got around to it. So whenever the idea for Farmhand kind of came to me after Chew, it hit all the right notes. I wanted something that was a bit more, uh, I guess, serious, but something that was also more emotionally raw. Because I was just in that headspace. I mean, during Chew, I mean, you got to understand, in 2009, when Chew first came out, you know, my wife and I had only been married a year. We didn't have any kids. And, by the time I started Farmhand in 2016, or no, I'm sorry, 2000, yeah, actually, it was 2016. We had three kids. We've been married over a decade at that point. So a lot of any of it, and Chew wasn't the proper venue for that because it was a goofy, yeah, it had some serious moments, but it wasn't the right place to deal with like the serious stuff, like becoming a parent, all the fears and the stuff that go along with that.
Hmm.
So whenever I started Farmhand, I saw it. I was like, well, there it is. Here's the story where I get to really kind of flex my drama muscles, but also bring in this terrifying horror thing.
Hmm.
Because Farmhand overall is it's a lot of things, but mostly what it is it's a book born out of all of my worst fears. Um, I mean, it really is. I mean, the rough pitch of Farmhand for anyone that doesn't know, it follows a character named Jedediah Jenkins, who's a farmer, and he doesn't grow soy or corn. He grows human body parts. They're genetically modified. They're spliced plant DNA with human DNA, and they're plug and play plant organs, um, which sounds like a great idea. Uh, and basically, he uses it to heal people, makes a bunch of money, and of course, during the course of this story, it all goes horribly wrong, and people start changing into some really horrible things. And really, what this story is about the impact of what Jedediah has made, how it's impacting his own children. How he thought he was doing all this good stuff, that he was healing the world,
Hmm.
and at the end of the day, it was just effing everything up. He created his own Frankenstein monster, and the people who have to deal with it are his kids, and that's just terrified me. And I mean, in my own life with my own kids, and it all came out in this story. And Thorn is the manifestation of all of that fear.
Hmm.
So yeah, she's a terrifying character, and yeah, I mean that's absolutely what I was going for, and it surprised. What's funny is it surprised a lot of people, because again, I was the goofy comedy guy, and I don't know if you know David Harper. He writes sketched, a really really great comics journalist friend of mine. Um, but he did some commentary on Farmhand years ago, and he said the exact same thing. He thought I was like the goofy comedy guy. And then he got to that image in issue 9 where Thorn transforms and you see her as she truly is. And he said it gave him nightmares. And I was like, okay, good. This is absolutely what I was going for. Like, I don't want this to feel like, goofy comedy guy trying to be serious. No, I want this to have serious emotional weight to it. So I'm glad to hear it jacked up your day. That's kind of what I was. And I think it, where we're going from. I don't know how far. Have you read issue 15 yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I own it. It's next to me, but I haven't gotten to read it yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. From there, there's some pretty powerful moments coming up, especially in the next arc. But it pays off really, really well. I'm happy with how it ends.
I was
One
explaining.
of the
Whoop, I'll
Take
go.
it away.
I was explaining to my fiance because that's one of the games I'm sure Jayare and I both play. Is we tell our significant others who we're talking to, and it's Rob Guillory drew True for a long time, or the entire series, and there's parts where Tony's boss is made to look really gross. He's got armpit stains, and when he yells, you could see spittle coming out of his mouth, and haha, it's gross. And the Chogs, we have Chogs from Skeleton, and I'm like, they're silly little chicken frog. Those are they're ridiculous. And I'm like, but you get to moments where something's heartbreaking, and as Jayare said, it just ruins you because the power of the storytelling and the power of the character's expressions getting into that moment. It's like, yes, it's funny. And then we go, oh my God. And that's just the strength of the storytelling. And it's also been happening in Farmhand. And I imagine, are you confident in, do you adapt your ability to write along with how you can draw, or are you confident that you could draw anything that you're going to write, or do you tone some things down so you could play up your strengths?
I kind of, when I was kind of making, this visual style that I usually work in, I kind of wanted it to be versatile enough to kind of be able to juggle all of it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be able to do some goofy comedy stuff because I just like that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to be able to turn it up to 11 and shock people with like scary things at the same time. Because I have very like diverse, tastes. I like a little bit of everything. So yeah, I switch it up as I need to. So with Chew, it's every issue was sort of different. There were some issues that were more sci-fi heavy. You had some that were sort of the vast majority of them were really goofy. And then you have the more like sincere, hardcore, darker issues. And Farmhand, like I said, is more the same. It's more serious, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, it's obviously more serious than Chew. It's more grounded. I don't do like I don't go as over the top with the comedy with Farmhand as I went on Chew. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I actually last year I did some Chew stuff for the first time in a few years, and it was weird, man. I realized how much I do tone it down with Farmhand. With Chew, I just went crazy with it. It really was a different side of my brain that I was kind of allowing myself to just go way, way out there in terms of anatomy and kind of stretching the human form and that sort of thing. So yeah, I kind of adapted as I need. And I do lean into my strengths, and I know how to cover my weaknesses and make them work for me. So it's just a dance. I think every artist is sort of we're all like problem solvers. Every project we work on is a problem that we have to figure out how to solve. So yeah, every page is kind of, just figuring that out.
We all actually met briefly a bunch of years ago at Boston Comic Con. That's when you and John Layman were there tabling, and Jayare's a big fan. He wanted to go say hi. He was being real shy about it.
I was very much.
Jayare's real good on episodes. In person, a little shy, but it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Shy is underselling it. I am painfully. I can't do it. I'm terrified of being that guy. Like, that in issue 6 on page 4, there was a panel, and I'm terrified of being that person. I'm walking.
You'd have to try really hard to be that guy. I've run into that guy enough times. That's like a medical condition or something.
What was fun was that that day I was actually cosplaying Mason Savoy. And
oh wow!
And Jayare was with me. We walk up together. We say hi. We're chatting for a bit, and without even saying anything, I think John reached first and picked up a print and started signing it. Just hands it to you. You don't say anything. You just sign it, and you guys hand it to me. And I don't know if it was a team agreement before the show, but you go, "Oh, anyone who cosplays their characters gets this for free." And I'm like, "Oh my god."
No, that wasn't an agreement. No, we just, I mean, it just makes sense to take care of the people that are taking care of you, you know? I mean, that's like common decency. So yeah, we've always been pretty good at kind of, giving showing a little love to the people that are supporting us, you know?
And
I
then
literally had
I,
variants thrown at me. Like I had brought Alex, finish your thought. You
oh, it
had
was just
more.
that like I leave and I come back an hour later and Jared's still there.
Yeah, it was one of those rare instances where I actually got comfortable. I credit that to you and John Layman for being cool enough to chat with me. This is at Boston Comic Con in 2015 or 16, I can't remember.
Mm.
But I had brought along. We had a table there that year with our friend Brett, who's an artist. So like we had the table for the podcast, but really it was for Brett's art. And which meant we could store stuff. So I could bring my giant smorgasbord edition, and I could bring it, and I can get it signed, and I could also have a place to put it down because that thing's enormous.
Yeah, I can't believe you actually flew with that thing.
Oh, we drove. We're
Okay.
We're 2 hours
an
away.
hour and a half from Boston.
Yeah, those things are heavy. I don't even go to shows with those things.
They're a beast. But it was neat, man. Like the appreciation like you guys have for your fans, and we touched on this earlier, but it's always especially with someone like myself who I struggle a lot with talking to people at conventions. I'm just bad at it. But it was cool. I got to sit there and chat with you and John about the work, about the book. You guys signed a bunch of stuff. You like literally I walked out with like 3 extra variants and I was like, oh, that's the Destroy Savoy cover. I've been looking for that one. And John was like, okay, and he signs it and gives it to me. Like, cool. um, but yeah, I mean, it was a blast. Being able to just kind of do that in person and also just kind of just chat about the work. You know, it's so fun when you can meet your creators. Like, and I'd say it's so easy for me to tell people to do it. Like, oh yeah, go and meet the people. When I'm in person, I'm like, no, they don't want to talk to me. They'll think I'm stupid.
Well, I'm glad it was a good experience. I mean, look, I mean, shows are rough. I mean, they can be really difficult. I mean, I mean, I mean, speaking for me and, probably for John a bit too, but probably more for me and for probably most comic people, we're pretty much mostly introverts. And we don't usually get out much. So, getting around like hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, can be a lot, man. So, I mean, I've had, by and large, I've been doing shows since 2005 or so. And I mean, she came out in '09. So like by and large, I've had overwhelmingly positive, interactions with fans and everything. But I'm sure, like I've been told I've had a couple that were negative, and I have like no recollection of that. But it's like, well, I mean, you must have caught me on the absolute wrong day. But we do our best to kind of make it enjoyable, and I mean, it's just cool to touch base with people that are actually enjoying the work we're making. Because most of the time most of the time I'm huddled at home by myself, making this stuff, thinking, am I crazy? Like, is this any good? So it's always cool to hear people actually getting out of it what you put into it.
Now you recently went to recently, as in 3 months ago. I believe it was Granite State Comic Con.
Yeah.
And that was the first show since early 2020. I'm assuming that's what everyone's been saying. Oh, it's my first show since March 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? How was that experience? What was that like? We got good feedback from Rich Woodall, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do I have that right?
Yeah.
I believe he was talking a lot about Granite State Comic Con, saying it was like one of his favorites, and he had a good experience. We talked to them a couple weeks
It's
ago.
also next door for him.
Yeah, it's like his home state. It's like he just drives down the road to it. But how was your experience there? What was it like going to a show again?
It was really cool, man. I mean, we had the early kind of jitters about it. I mean, not having been at shows since, I mean, my last show before that, I think was in 2019, actually. So, I mean, this is the longest I'd gone without even being on a plane or anything in
Right.
years. I used to do maybe, a show every month for a while there. But it was really cool, man. My wife actually came out with me, so we actually made it sort of I mean, she hadn't traveled with me to a show in forever, and we both love New England. So, I'd never been to New Hampshire. Well, actually, I had been to New Hampshire one time before, But it was really cool, man. I'm probably done doing the big shows. So Granite StateCon was really the perfect size for me. I got to. It's one of those shows where it's busy enough to stay kind of busy,
Hmm.
but at the same time, like I got to have the time to touch base with people and have like longer conversations with people, and not be like swamped with all the craziness and
Right.
yeah, it was really really fun.
Your wife seems to be a big part of. I remember way back in the day when like if you wanted a cover or like original art, you got on the mailing list, which was run by your wife, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
just neat being like my wife is she's everything. She is my entire world. I am nothing without her. So when I see other people like in those types of she seems to be pretty involved with your career and with your work. It's just nice.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, she was the first person who read the Chew script when John sent it over. She read it before I did. And
Oh wow.
yeah, literally, like, I got the script. This was in July of 2008. It was the day before San Diego Comic-Con. And, I'd met John once briefly. He doesn't remember it. I was actually a fan of his before we ever started working together. But he, sends me the script. I freaked out because I was actually just looking to like really make the leap into full-time comics. So he emailed me out of the blue, sent me the script for Chew. We were on the plane over to Comic Con. He was going to be there the next day, so we get to meet and talk about it. My wife reads the script and she looks at me and says, "This is amazing, and this is absolutely perfect for you, and you're going to kill it." And that I knew that was a big deal because my wife is not a comic book person. She likes David Mack stuff, and that's pretty much it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I knew, holy crap, this could be huge if she likes it. This is going to be a big deal.
Mhm.
So yeah, she's always, she's the first person who reads my Farmhand scripts. I don't finish a script before, sitting and talking with her about it and like really laying out, hey, how did this make you feel? What about this scene? What do you think about this? And we have, an hour long conversation about an issue. And yeah, she's brilliant. I mean, yeah, she those early years in Farmhand and in Shoe. Yeah, I didn't expect anyone to want my art. So whenever the first issue came out and I started getting emails from people just saying like, hey, is this page available from shoe number one? And I just didn't see that coming. Like, holy crap, like what? Um, so I didn't know what to do with it. So I just gave it to my wife who had worked in sales for a while. And I just said, look, do something with this because I can't objectively price this. I don't know what to do with this. And at the time we had, within the next couple of years, we started having kids. So she became like a stay-at-home mom and she handled all of my art sales and she was amazing at it. And she, I mean, she like built relationships with people, like everyone. I mean, some of the relationships she formed with readers back then, we still have those relationships today, which is really really cool. But yeah, no, she stopped managing my art back in 2016. She started her own company, so she's kicking ass, just making she's a contractor
Hmm.
and interior designer, so she's building houses
Oh,
and she's
damn.
actually making I give her a hard time. I'm like, oh, you're doing like actual work that that is like I'm making comic books. She's building people's houses. So she's amazing. She's awesome.
You are the one of the first times I've ever I don't the whole money thing. So original art is few and far between for someone like myself. Uh, and also I'm indecisive and I can never pull the trigger on something. But way early on, I think Chew was the first book I ever owned original art from. I can't quite remember.
Hmm.
But I got a page from issue 4. And my main criteria was it needs to have Mason on it because Mason's my shit. I love Mason's the boy. He's my character. Fun fact: years ago, in like 2012, I believe, you were going to Wizard World Austin, and you open up your commission list, and I was like, "Hey, if I pay for shipping, would you send one to me?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Um,
That sounds
and I
like
was like,
me.
"Cool." Yeah, and I was like, "Cool, just whatever, man, whatever's cool for you. I didn't want to, like, you were already throwing me a bone, so I was like, just draw whatever. And you sent me a commission to Mason, and I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like that worked out perfectly. Um, but
Cool.
the second page, because I own 2 pages of Chew, and like you said, like hunting the art. I was reading through the issue, and when I got to the page, I was like, oh my god, I need that. And then I was like, yeah, I was on your site like religiously waiting for this issue to drop because it was, I don't know if you remember, it was, and I'm being that guy, excuse me, it was the issue where Chow gives the giant middle finger,
Right.
and it just
Right.
says "bam" behind it. Like, I can't remember who he was flipping off, but I was like, and you can see the reflection in the ring. I had to have it. So the second one up, I bought it immediately. It's one of my prized possessions.
Yeah, I it's funny. Like I think I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he was talking about he had an encounter with a golden age comic artist,
Hmm.
and he had he brought a copy of the guy's book that he had drawn decades earlier. He brought him this copy to get it signed, and the guy, this old artist, he's like in his probably his 70s or 80s now, and he gets the book and he starts flipping through it, and he reveals that he had no recollection. He had no recollection of making this book.
Huh.
And they were pumping out work so fast
Hmm.
that he just, he hadn't seen the pages since he drew them, 40 years ago or whatever. And I feel that way with Chew sometimes, to a lesser degree. I haven't seen a lot of that stuff in forever. So from time to time, I'll randomly take a trade off the shelf and kind of flip through it.
Hmm.
And I'm happy to say I actually enjoy it. Uh, like there's a lot of it that I was making it purely for my own enjoyment. Like I wanted readers to enjoy it too, but like I was trying to make myself laugh most of the time. So like just what you were saying about, I distinctly remember that panel with Chow flipping the middle finger with a big bam behind him and all this kind of stuff. It's just it's so ridiculous. But it makes me there's parts of me that I can't wait to get back to do something more comedic because again, Farmhand is not that.
Hmm.
Right.
That's a completely different side of my brain. And yeah, it's really really fun to make goofy, silly art that I can laugh about 10 years after I've drawn it.
I think that happened to me one time. I think I brought some Sergeant Rock to Joe Kubert. And he's like, I don't remember any of this. I did 3 of these a month, 3 issues a month. And he's like, I don't know what this is. He's like, it's my work. I don't remember doing it though.
Right. Yeah, it's easy to just kind of blaze right through that stuff, man.
I know we're getting toward the end here. There's a couple more things that I did want to touch on real quick. One of them being you've posted about it, and one of my I tried to hype up some of my friends because they all know who you are because I never shut up, and I've made most of them read Chew if they hadn't already. We're also a bunch of us are pretty big wrestling fans, especially with the new organization with AEW, and with CM Punk making his return, who you famously worked on with. You drew his first comic work ever, and you also posted about doing the New Day. When are we getting that Rob Guillory wrestling book? When is that coming? Are there?
Wow, yeah, that you're the first person ever asked me that question. Eventually, I used to be. I mean, back in the early, late '90s, early 2000s, Monday Night War kind of stuff. I really became. I was already a big fan, but that was kind of my sweet spot. Like it was a sweet spot for a lot of people. But I was a fan really since like, I forget which WrestleMania it was, but it was Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and all that kind of stuff.
Right. The OGs.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the larger than life characters and that sort of thing. But I've been kind of plugging back in a bit more with the AEW stuff. And it's super cool, man. Like there's kind of this purity to it that's really really fun. And yeah, seeing Punk debut was nuts. Because I mean it was a really cool experience getting to work with him, and I actually got to work with his wife AJ too. On her book. She has an autobiography that's actually like legitimately fantastic. She's an amazing writer.
Huh.
So yeah, like I floated the idea of doing a pro wrestling book. I have no idea when that'll happen. I have like at least 3 or 4 different pitches. It would be a genre mixing kind of thing.
Mhm.
Right.
So it wouldn't just be pro wrestling; it'd be pro wrestling plus something else. I have no idea. Probably, it won't be next year. It'll probably be the year after. Um, so we'll see. It's one of the things on my bucket list of like I have to do this. And apparently, I mean, there's a pretty massive like comic book overlap with pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it does make sense.
I mean, you got to draw. Was it the Hulk in a luchador mask for the variant cover?
Yeah. Well, what happened was Punk. So he and I had crossed paths. I found out via Twitter
He was a big fan of Chew, right?
yeah, he was a Chew fan, which blew me away. I was like, holy crap, this is great. So he ended up coming into my hometown in Lafayette, Louisiana, for Raw. And I had a buddy of mine. Every time the wrestlers would come into town, they go to our local comic shop. And I was good buddies with the owner of the shop. So, when I heard he was in town, I text my buddy who runs the shop and said, hey, man, if I send you some books, could you get them to Punk? And he said, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I sent him like I think the first 2 Chew hardcovers. And I signed them up and stuff and said, hey, whatever. And I didn't think it was that big a deal. But like I went back on Twitter later that day and I just my Twitter was just blowing up. Like, what is going on here? And it was Punk. And Punk had like, tweeted a picture of it and he was like super happy. And the thing was he was a heel at the time. So he was like, he's not a nice guy. He's supposed to be like
to do that.
Right. So people were actually commenting like, what are you doing? Like you're like the bad guy. Like, but he was talking up the city. So later that night he ends up messaging me. He's like, hey man, that meant a lot. I'm like, holy crap. Like, all right, cool. So years later we just stayed buddies. And he hit me out of the blue saying, hey, can you do freelance work for other publishers? I said, yeah, sure. And then next thing you know, Marvel hits me up and they said, hey, we have this Thor thing with Punk. It's a drinking contest, which is hilarious because he's a straight edge.
Right.
So I thought this is perfect. So yeah, whenever, they pitched me the idea of a variant cover, I said, well, we have to do something wrestling themed. I mean, come on. So yeah, the Hulk in a luchador mask as the mystery wrestler. That was my idea that they actually went for. Yeah, it was a fun gig.
It's fun. I dug it out from like the archives. I was like, because I knew I had the issue. Because one, it was like, oh hey, CM Punk's writing comics now. That's neat. This is before he was on Drax, and I'd been a fan of your work obviously through Chew. So I was like, okay, yeah, I need to, because I didn't even read Thor at the time. But it was a fun book. It was a very fun issue.
Yeah, I floated to Punk at C2E2 a few years back. I said, hey, we should do something again one day. So I'll he's very busy at the moment, and so am I.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like I feel like one day I'm just gonna pop up and say, hey man, we should like let's do a wrestling comic. Why not?
Right.
So who knows? We'll see.
It's kind of like perfect timing because like he's the guy again. But yeah, so that was really neat. I just really thought that was cool. I'd never been a big CM Punk fan because I'd never watched WWE. It was I did when I was a kid. But I just kind of fell out of it. Like once Stone Cold and The Rock weren't like the top guys, I was like, I don't know who John Cena is, whatever. But AEW has kind of reignited my love of wrestling. My wife gets to deal with me talking about it all the time. The guys pretending to beat each other up. It's just fun. It's fun stuff. And then Punk coming back. Oh my God. I must have watched that return half a dozen times. It was ridiculous, that pop that he got.
I was going to say, does your wife still respect you after knowing you like pro wrestling?
She deals with it. She pretends to care. It's a running gag in our joke, or in our house. Like she refers to it as my stories. Like I have to go watch my stories. And she's like, she'll the next morning she's like, how are the stories? How did Kenny Omega do? And I'm like, I'll tell her, even though fully aware she doesn't give a shit.
Her,
She's great.
Jared's like taking videos of it where he'll rush in the room and be like, "The Young Bucks just did this," and she goes, "Wow, better not miss it."
Oh wow, you better get back there so you don't miss it.
Yeah, I didn't watch pro wrestling really. I mean, the first, I feel like the first 8 years or so of our marriage. And then I decided to swoop back around and check it out again. And she caught me watching it one day. Like she went out on like a girls' night or something, and she came home and I was watching pro wrestling. And I thought, yeah, let's see how she responds to this. And it didn't go well. It didn't go well at all. I mean, she was completely honest. She's like, I don't think I've like lost respect for you, but really, like what? Like you don't understand. You just don't understand. There's just something pure about, and we know it's not completely. I mean, parts of it are scripted, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's just pure entertainment. How do you not like this?
It's like it's scripted, but they're still beating the hell out of each other. It is.
Right.
There's still it's still some bonkers stuff. And then the storylines when you get invested. Oh, I hate how into it I am, but fuck it, whatever, man. It's
Well, the thing I appreciate about AEW is I've been I don't have TNT, so I've been kind of catching it via YouTube here and there.
yeah.
So I love the fact that they've kind of leaned into the gimmicks in kind of a ridiculous way. Like I look at like someone like Orange Cassidy, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me! Like this is fantastic. And then the other day I just watched. I didn't know about what's this guy's name? Trent, who's like his mom drives him to the ring.
Sue.
I saw that the other day for the first time, and I thought it was just the greatest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean it's just ridiculous, but I mean we watch ridiculous stuff all the time. I mean that was the thing, even with Chew back in comics. When Chew first debuted and it got announced, there were some people that really had a problem with it. I remember people saying like, "Oh, this is just ridiculous." Like they thought the premise was just silly, but it's like, well, no, comics is built on silly. I mean,
Right.
I mean, comics is all silly. It's just what will you allow yourself to kind of believe. So that's what I love about pro wrestling. It's the same thing. It's completely ridiculous in a lot of ways, but when it's good, it's really really good.
It really is. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a lot here because I know we're very short on time. But there's a couple things that I did want to touch on, and you had mentioned this before, and I was interested to touch on it because with the newer issues of Farmhand, you did mention shakeups with the creative team. We had a chance to talk with Taylor Wells way back, like our second or third year. She was very cool. One of the coolest people we talked with. She gave us that kind of like insider. We're still kind of starting out talking with people, weren't sure, but she was really cool. She was cool enough to come on talk. She is no longer working with the book, and I see that the colors are now being done by, I'm going to butcher it, Jean-Francois Bollier.
Probably Beaulieu, maybe.
Beaulieu, yeah.
Probably.
I know his work from Invincible mostly. So I was happy to see because his colors are incredible.
Yeah.
What's that relationship been like working with a new colorist?
It's been amazing. He's he just brings. Okay, so like his previous work, I mean, he did I Hate Fairyland. He also did Middle West. He works with Sky Young a lot.
Right.
His color sensibilities were very similar to my own. Back on Shoot. I mean, it was just really, I love, switching up color palettes from scene to scene and that sort of thing. But he's just so much better than I am. I mean, he's a painter. I mean, I've seen him do full digital painting, and I don't even know how he does what he does. So yeah, he was always kind of on my short list of dream colorists to work with. So after Taylor left the book, I worked with a couple other colorists. Jeremy Treese on issue 13 and Rico Renzi on 14 and 15. And both were great. They brought their own strengths to it. But I knew during this hiatus that, my white whale was basically Jean-Francois. He was the guy I just always wanted because I knew he would just lift the book up a whole other level. And, last year I kind of had to, actually this year I had some DC Comics work kind of materialize out of nowhere. DC was
Hmm.
sort of the one company I never worked for, and all of a sudden they were kind of offering me all this work. And one of the gigs was a Red Hood one shot, and which I was all about. Big Batman fan, obviously. So I was all about it. And when they came time to, they asked me, what colorist do you want to work with? I said, this guy. Like this is the guy. Bring me this guy. Which they did, and he just blew me away. It was just a dream team, really. So everything he brought in just blew me away, and he's probably, I mean, I don't know anyone that can touch what he's doing, at least from my taste. So it was cool getting to kind of like, getting to test him, to kind of try him out without having to pay for him for working at DC. That was sort of a cheat. But he got paid, so I'm happy. But yeah, after that, I immediately came to him and said, hey, what about Farmhand? Are you interested? And we worked some things out. Issue 16 is completely colored. And yeah, I mean, he's just unbelievable. There's not a lot to the relationship, to be completely honest. I send him the inks and I say, hey, here's a script, go crazy. And I start getting paid as in, and they are never what I picture them being, but they're always a million times better.
Right.
I'll send him a few notes here and there maybe, but everything I've ever sent him is very, very minor. He is just, I mean, my wife, again, she's a designer. She's very, very good with color. And she's also a painter. Her background's in painting. So color theory is a big deal to her. So whenever I showed her John's work, she immediately is like, holy crap, like this guy's color theory is just through the roof. So yeah, I'm super, I could not be happier about the stuff he's turning in. And I think it's going to lift up the couple of trades to a whole other level. So I think you're going to like it.
I'm pretty psyched. I mean, already was psyched for the books. This is just like, it's like gravy, it's just the little extras even better. But okay, so as much as I want to keep going, I do think we've taken up a lot of your time tonight. So we do need to think about ending. Before we get to the end, just a minute. You did mention the website earlier. I know last month you were taking pre-orders for the sketchbook. Is that still happening? Is that still a thing?
The pre-orders are done, but I am putting up. I did the print run. I'm getting it tomorrow, so like people will be able to order it on the website. It's robguillory.com. And I'm actually looking at doing another. From time to time, I do like basically fun little mini sketchbooks and that sort of thing that you really can't find anywhere else. So I have another one. I have an art book coming out also late, probably in the spring. That's going to be just a huge collection. It'll probably be like 48 to 60 pages of just all original content. There'll be some covers. There'll be some tons of commissions, concept art, that sort of thing. All of it's full color. I'm a huge, obviously, as we discussed earlier, I'm a geek for like well-made books. So my sketchbooks are really, really, really nice. Great paper stock. I'm working with a local printer who's also a giant paper geek. So at least they just send him things and say, hey, what kind of fancy thing do you have? And then he runs tests and I go over and we geek out and giggle. So yeah, that's other than Farmhand, which like I said, that'll be coming out. The new issues start in April. Yeah, the new art books will be kind of rolling out on my website. There's some other stuff too that I can't announce, but I am doing another series other than Farmhand that has not been announced. So I'll be announcing that, I would guess, in the spring as well. So yeah, I'm keeping busy.
Awesome, man. And you had mentioned robguillory.com. Any socials? I don't think you've been on Twitter, but as far as like Instagram, I don't know if you use Facebook at all. Where can people go to find your stuff?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, Rob_Guillory, and I am on Facebook. I think if you look up Rob_Guillory, it'll take you to my personal page. And if you go there, I also have a Facebook, like an actual artist fan page thing. Just look up Rob Guillory. I'm one of the few that comes up, official Rob Guillory or something like that. Just look for art that looks like mine. You'll find it eventually.
Awesome. Alex, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before I realized I kind of steamrolled the end here?
No, I'm good.
Okay. You are good, man.
Oh.
All right. Rob, dude, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I know you are busy as all hell with Farmhand. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
Anytime, man.
This has been a blast, dude. It's been well worth the wait. Thanks again for kind of dealing with us and working with us. I'm glad we were able to squeeze this in before we ended. So thank you again.
No. Thank you guys for supporting the book.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to see what comes out in the spring. I can't wait to see the new title. It's going to be a lot of fun. So best of luck with all of that. And I think that's going to be it. So until next time, I have been Jayare.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Rob.
And this has been episode 441 of Opinions May Vary. Hey everyone, if you like that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.